Welcome. Today's project's on the question, are you too dependent? When I was struggling from GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, years ago, I was dependent on people for that reassurance. I needed to know if this pain in my side was a serious disease. I needed to know if this headache was a brain tumor. I needed to know if I'm healthy, if I'm mentally okay. And I relied on the close people around me, family in particular, to give me that reassurance and give me that feel good. It's okay. You're okay. Everything's fine. And it would make me feel good for that moment. But then it made me stick around them more. It made me more dependent on them for that feel good communication, right? So I was dependent on my family, but I was also dependent on things. I was dependent on alcohol. I was dependent on marijuana. I was dependent on TV for supplying me that band-aid of letting go and forgetting all of my problems. But that's the thing. Underneath the surface was the truth, was the pain that I needed to confront in order to recover from that pain. Anxiety sufferers get stuck in chaos, in the unknown, right? So they get stuck in that unknown domain. And how they get there is two ways. One, they can practice anxiety over a period of time like I did, where everything just becomes chaotic over time. Or two, something catastrophic happens. You get betrayed by somebody, or somebody dies in your family, or something unimaginable happens to you, and that leaves you down into the chaotic unknown. For me, over a long period of time, I practiced anxiety. I practiced bad habits. I pushed away the problems I needed to confront and accept, right? Because when you neglect all of these problems around you, they build up unconsciously. If you neglect that phone bill, it's not a problem now once you get the phone bill in the mail, but if you neglect and don't pay it and you put it off, that envelope, that phone bill becomes a problem. It becomes a major problem the more you let it sit around, and the more you just not accept that it's there, right? So all of these problems in my life started to accumulate and grow and grow and grow into a huge monster. And then I wasn't able to confront that monster because I didn't have the right tools and techniques. And so I just plummeted into a chaotic state, an anxiety-ridden state for such a long time. So anxiety sufferers remain in the unknown, and then they constantly seek out habits, bad habits, that repress their emotions even more. Like I said, TV, marijuana, alcohol, and reassurance seeking, and constant doctor visits, all of these things that keep their anxious identity alive. So let's get into signs that you may be too dependent. But first, let me just define independent. Somebody who's independent has the right tools and techniques and strategies to handle the chaos, to handle the unknown appropriately and effectively, right? I wasn't that guy. I didn't have the right tools. I didn't grow up with the techniques and skills that I needed to confront the challenges life inevitably throws your way, okay? So let's talk about the 4 signs. The first sign is substances and things that you depend on to keep you satisfied, to fill that void, right? There's a void in you. You're filling that void with marijuana. You're filling that void with alcohol. And alcohol is a great anxiety suppressor, man. I mean, it works so well. I used to have a few glasses of wine a night. And I know wine is not terribly bad for you, but I was dependent on it to just calm down. And that's not a good sign. and I was also dependent on television. It was kind of like my escape to sit in front of Netflix, TV, and just watch all these shows and forget about the problems that I'm having, right? And not only TV, but junk foods, fast foods, pizza, burgers, all of these things I was eating constantly because it made me feel good. It gave me that dopamine kick, but then afterwards I would crash. I would feel mentally exhausted and emotionally exhausted because that food wasn't fueling me the way it needed to fuel me, right? So I was dependent on things and substances when I was suffering from anxiety. Now, the third thing is constant doctor visits. So anxiety sufferers have this a need to know the answers, especially if you're suffering from health anxiety. I needed to know whether this pain in my side was a serious illness. I needed to know whether this headache was a tumor. I needed to know whether I had heart problems because it was palpitating. So I would go to the doctors constantly to get checked out. So I was dependent on the doctors for answers I needed to know. And when the doctor said, Brad, you're okay, I checked everything. I checked your urine, I checked your blood, and I gave you a scan. Everything is fine. It would make me feel elated for that brief moment. I would leave feeling happy that all of my catastrophic thoughts, didn't come true. I'm actually healthy because my doctor said so. But the thing is, later that day, when I was at home, the pain would come back. The symptoms would come back, and then I would say, the doctor must have missed something. So then I would go back. So I was constantly seeking the answer to my problems because I had the strong belief that I was unhealthy. I was mentally and physically unhealthy. But the thing is, little did I know, I was looking at one side of the coin. I didn't have all the knowledge and information I needed to think rationally. I was only looking at one side of the coin, but the other side of the coin was anxiety, because anxiety symptoms are similar to heart attack, or similar to fainting, or similar to other diseases, right? Because the anxiety response produces adrenaline and cortisol, and that produces a wide range of bodily sensations. So anxiety was the factor to why I was feeling these pains, these body aches, these body zaps, this racing heart, and this lump in the throat feeling, and this headache, right? It was my anxiety that I was misinterpreting, right? I was perceiving these symptoms as being life-threatening, so I was dependent on my doctor for the answers. Number 2 is Dr. Google. Sort of the same thing with number 3, Dr. Google. I was seeking out the answers. But with Dr. Google, I became addicted to it in a way where as soon as I saw the catastrophic result on Google, that pain in your side equals kidney disease, and I would react emotionally, and then I would always go back to Google for more answers because it seemed like it was being honest. It was the truth, like it was doing no wrong. But the thing with Google is that it's always going to show you the worst case scenario. It doesn't tell you that, it could most likely be anxiety, those pains and aches. But no, it doesn't tell you that. It gives you a catastrophic outcome, and then that sends you down into chaos, and it snowballs your anxiety. And then once it snowballs anxiety, it starts the cycle again. You got to go back on Google because anxiety is causing more of that pain, more of that headache, more of these sensations. And so then you're going to constantly seek more answers on Google. So I realized that Google was such a bad habit. It was doing me no good. But I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't have the knowledge that it was anxiety. I didn't have the knowledge that it could be other things other than that certain disease I was ruminating over. So are you dependent on Google for answers? It's a good question to ask yourself. Number 1 is, are you dependent on other people around you, family, close friends, for that reassurance? This one is huge, especially for me. I would depend on my parents for answers. I would call them up and say, what if this pain in my neck is actually a serious illness? What if I am actually dying because of this? Why is my pee this color? Maybe I am dying. And I would always get that reassurance from them. And they would always provide me with that feel-good response. You know, you're fine, you're healthy, everything's good. They'll even provide you with your favorite kind of food or something, right? And then they'll make you feel good for that moment. But in the end, you're going to still feel that sensation and symptom, and then become even more addicted to that dependency with them. I became addicted to that response, that safety net, right? But it only kept my anxious identity alive. The thing with anxiety recovery is that you have to move from your anxious identity towards that ideal you, that confident you, that powerful you, the one that's independent, right? That can survive on your own, the one that has all the resources to overcome challenges around you. And I needed to move from this anxious guy to that independent guy. So I needed to break apart all of these habits that kept my anxious identity alive. This reassurance seeking only put fuel to my anxiety. And the thing with being dependent on others for reassurance is that when you start to move towards anxiety recovery, you're going to hit that resistance. And the reason why is because there's a part of you that's afraid of losing that connection you made with your family member or friend. Because now you've bonded more in a sense. All that reassurance seeking, all that time hanging around each other, you've bonded. And then to be more independent, you have to really break apart from that, right? You have to leave the nest, so to speak. So I needed to break apart from that bond. I was so dependent on the reassurance, and I was afraid of losing that friendship, losing that love and connection. But I needed to in order to become more independent. So I needed to figure out and take responsibility for my anxiety on my own. I needed to figure this out on my own and provide myself with the knowledge and information and strategies and techniques to remain in an independent state, in a more calm, neutral manner. And I learned that from podcasts, from role models, from other people who overcame anxiety. And I'm sure that's why you're here on my channel, is you found me, a guy, a man who overcame anxiety, gotten better, and I'm talking about how I did that to you, because you want somebody to give you the answers, to tell you how to move away from that old anxious you towards that ideal you, the you that you've always wanted to be. And I'm going to leave that on that note, because I think that's a great place to stop. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's video. And remember, do not let anxiety define who you are. I will see you on the next video. Bye for now.